Welcome to the Moodboard. My name is Aaron,
And this is Cesar.
and we're two creatives having meaningful conversations to help you unlock your creative potential. We're back with a few topics that are really exciting. First one is, Cesar, you just recorded a podcast. Can you please tell me about that show? What is it called and how did it go?
Yeah, so I recently joined a podcast that was outside. I was on my walk and in the afternoon, and I saw this table with, a few people, someone recording, and then I saw the sign that say podcast outside. No, podcast, but outside. We'll give $1 to join or to participate. We will give you $1 to participate. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. and there was like someone doing it, and then there was another person in line, and then it was me. And it was fun. Like when it was my turn, it was fun. They asked you, of course, what do you do, and then from that, like a lot of comments or questions come up. So like you just talk about random stuff.
Yeah.
And it was pretty fun. Looking back, I was thinking about like, wow, people really want to, participate and be part of these experiences. And I think there should be more of that.
Yeah.
And I maybe that's something we could consider in the near future for like a special episode where like we do something outside. And it was really cool because, people, even though like the $1 thing was like kind of funny, like we'll give you $1 to join, but like people didn't mind just talking there. I'm sure someone will like just sit there for 2 hours. No problem.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, the dynamics of like, I don't know, doing things out of the ordinary, but that are fun, and it catches people's attention.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah, it was really cool.
What kind of questions did they ask you?
They asked me, what did you do? And well, I said like I have my. Oh well, I told them the thing about like, hey, I saw you guys doing this outside, and I saw the sign podcast but outside, and I told them I just started a podcast and I couldn't not join. So I share about our podcast. I share what we do, what we're about, and they were like, very interested about like why we started the podcast. So I explained them why. Because we wanted to leave our fingerprint in the, in this design timeline, and a way to document, thought process and anything going on right now. We thought that a podcast would be appropriate.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were very like, they thought it was a really cool idea, and glad that we're doing it. And yeah.
That's really cool. I think what you mentioned, like how people were very willing to participate. I do think that there is this art of a conversation, right? Like there's this art to having these meaningful interactions with people, and when the context is right and it like you remove all those like layers of friction to have these conversations, it facilitates a lot of I think a lot of participation.
Yeah, and I feel like people want to like not only communicate, but they want to feel connected.
Yeah.
So by someone just like, this group of 4 guys listening to you and having comments about like what you say, or being, someone interested in like, oh, that's really cool. Like, oh, what do you do?
Yeah.
I think people, it feels special, being a
Yeah.
guest on a podcast.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of that as well. Just like people, as you said, like there is this innate feeling to wanting to be listened, and that feeling of belonging.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was very interesting, very very interesting.
Totally. I think that you captured it really well. When people are really great listeners, great conversationalists. I recently had this experience. I met someone at a just like a design party, and we struck up a conversation, and they were very, very good at just like having a conversation. And I asked them what they did, and they replied that they were in sales. And so obviously that really set off my curiosity, and I asked them just like to kind of tell me how they arrived at what they do. And one of the things that really stood out to me was that she said that she translates things for people. She became a translator, and that
Oh wow.
most of the job is really just paying attention and listening.
Right.
And yeah, it just really got me thinking about this art of the conversation. And that's essentially what you and I have been, doing with this podcast. I feel like it's helped a lot to have these dialogues and really just like exercising that muscle of like learning to listen, learning to ask questions, learning to pay attention. And I really do. I'm excited. I think that would be really cool to have like a special episode, and we do something different. We do it live. We take questions from the audience, and we've mentioned that we want to go live in the near future. And yeah, I definitely think we should do that, because just like playing with the context and the environment, man, like it leads to really interesting results, I think.
Totally. And I also feel like we wouldn't progress as a society, or we wouldn't, strive to do things better if we didn't have conversations, if we didn't communicate, if we didn't express our, I don't know, feelings, ideas, desires. And I have been reading, bits and pieces of books, articles about, relationships, healthy relationships, successful relationships, for my career, because I am in a moment in my career where like I have to be the salesman. I have to pitch, for a project, or I have to reach out to someone to see if like, hey, do you see appeal in what I have to offer, type of thing. So I have been very sensitive now to the things I say, how I say them, when I say them, and yeah, just trying to make a connection with someone so that we can like, work together, partner together, collaborate together. And because, again, if I am not successful at building these relationships, without these relationships, there is not like, this will not, ultimately this will not lead to business. And, me without business is just equals no no clients, no design.
Yeah. No work.
So yeah, correct.
Totally.
And when you look at all the books about relationships and all the books about how to win and influence people, all those things, all those books, oh, it all comes down to communication and to you being mindful to the other person's needs and what they might be looking for, what they might need help with. And I think this is a great for us to also like segue into the comments that we get from the audience, from people after either watching one of the episodes or discovering our channel. We recently had a audience member, someone that found our channel, and he was really excited about what we were doing, and he said that he has been binge watching our episodes. So that was like, for me, that was really rewarding, because, well, one, it feels like we're doing something right, and whether it's a compliment or whether it's a suggestion to do something else differently, we want to listen, we want to take that into consideration, and we want to reassess when we feel like, yes, we need to do things different.
Yeah, totally. Just thinking, Cesar, can you check if your video is on? I'm not sure
Let me
why,
see.
but I can't see you anymore. Okay. Perfect. Cool. Yeah, it was off. Okay. Yeah, okay, so we were talking about the audience feedback, and I think that topic that you just brought up about communication and listening, in order to establish relationships, to build business, to build design, it's always doing the thing that's going to take you to the other thing that's going to take you to the other thing, right? It's a very strategic process. And it brings me back to this conversation that I had with this person that I met. And I asked them, how do you, because I don't know, I'm very fascinated by sales. I'm very fascinated by people who get to yes, like people who are able to create deals like that. And I don't really talk to many people who are involved in sales, or I guess I haven't spoken to people in that world recently. And so I asked them, how do you build desire? Like, because she told me, she's like, sometimes I talk to people who think that they don't need our product, or they're fine. They say we're good. We don't need anything. And I asked her, okay, how do you deal with those kinds of people? How do you make deals with them? How do you show them that what you have is what they need? And she said that she asks for what they value. What are your values? And by examining that, she said that oftentimes they say they value something, yet their infrastructure or the way they work says something else. And and so they kind of she kind of points out those shortcomings, and
that's pretty clever.
Yeah, and builds up that opportunity.
She's looking for that crack, where she can
yeah,
really
yeah,
she wants to expose you. Wow.
Yeah. And then It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? And what you mentioned now about relationships, it seems like it really comes down to, are you likable? Is this person, do they feel like they can trust you? Do they feel like they're comfortable around you? And one thing that it really hit, like I started to kind of see this, is like, if you are a good listener, I think it it really automatically makes you trustworthy.
Yeah.
And it's such a great way to just build genuine relationships with people and with collaborators, and future business opportunities can come out of that. Just that simple act that you and I get to practice on this podcast, which is listening, having conversations, and just sharing. Yeah, no, what kind of books have you been reading to help you with that?
Yeah. So I have been continuing Think Grow Rich,
Okay.
because I stopped for a while because I was like doing some work after work, like other work after work. So I just didn't have time to continue. And you have to pay attention to the case studies, the examples that they give in the book, because I feel like there is a lot of, even though the point of the story is to support the point that they have made on the book, there is a lot more to it, by you paying attention to things that people that are in the story say or do, which the book is not highlighting. So I backtrack a little bit in the reading to really look at things through a different lens. So I am in the section where I'm reading about the mastermind group, where knowledge, pretty much the book points out, and it actually talks, mentions things about schools, or like the school system, how could do better by the schools do a great job at teaching you knowledge, sharing information, teaching you how to do something. But it is up to the person to decide what to do with that knowledge, how to apply it, how to create an action plan so that, like, what you know is being utilized in this plan to get you to where you want to be in your career. And practically this, I think this book is about, like, hey, get the knowledge that you need, build the plan, build a plan for you to help you get there step by step. Get surrounded by people that that are knowledgeable, or try to get surrounded by the people that you want to be like. And then you start going at it. You start, let's try this, let's try that. And it yields for very interesting results, and results that would have been, it also talks about, this thought just popped to my head. The book also talks about the, not the danger, but I would say, like, being cautious with shooting for an entry-level job, because you might get content with being at that level, and you're not gonna rise, or maybe you're not gonna do as much as you should be doing had you been a little bit more proactive from the beginning, and come across as like, hey, I don't want to work for you, I want to work with you type of approach. And because the people with those kind of mentalities, they get hired for higher positions, or they have a higher chance of becoming partners instead of an employee. So when you look at things through a different angle, and through okay, I have this knowledge, how do I apply this, what do I do with what I know? So, and then of course communication is part of the recipe. One of the ingredients for a successful recipe is communication, which is essential. And I wanted to touch on the sales conversation. I didn't read. Someone told me that the sales starts after the person says no.
Wait, say that again?
The sales start after the person says no.
Whoa. That's good. That's really good.
Because if the person wants your product, okay, that's easy. But I don't think, just as much companies might focus on their current customers, I think they're more focused on how do we acquire the customers that don't want our product.
That's interesting. So help me understand that a bit more. Is it more like, how do we acquire people outside of our current customer base? As in, is our product open, or is our product needing to accommodate with new features so that our customer base grows? Or is it, I'm trying to frame my own question here.
Yeah, I think it's more like the first one.
Okay.
Where, I mean, technically you don't have to worry about your current customer, because the current customer has your product. I think about, I don't know, maybe using Apple as an example. If you have an iPhone, high chances you have a MacBook, high chances you have a AirPod, the Apple Watch, this and that, Apple this, Apple that. So you have like an Apple ecosystem. I don't want to say that applies to everyone, but high chances you have more than one Apple product. I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know, if they try to appeal to people that don't like the brand, or appeal to people that don't see the value in having an Apple product.
That's interesting.
So I think, and we can think about that, maybe like deep dive a little bit into this topic, but think about all the decisions Apple has made to market to other to market to a very specific demographic. I don't know if this is true or not, but the reason why like early 2000s the MacBooks were white is because the majority of the consumers were females working in the medical field, something along those lines, or like females. So like they wanted products that evoke a feeling of delicate feeling, like, because laptops before were like black, gray, I don't know, dark blue, like black, 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 black. But like by Apple offering a white product, it made it more like friendly, and I'm sure that attracted a different customer base, which were, mostly
Yeah.
females.
I was thinking that when I was also being reminded of like when the iPod came out first, it was, I think it was like 1,000 songs in your pocket or something. It was like a big device. And then eventually they came out with the iPod Nano. And then there was the iPod Shuffle, the one that had no screen on it. And so they didn't make it, I guess they made a more accessible product, which further made their products dominant. So I can definitely understand why you would do that. It's not so much of like, oh, this customer needs more convincing. It's that, oh, this customer is in this price range, and we as a company have to decide if we want to offer something in that price range or not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great example. And I just want to clarify that we use Apple as an example most of the time. It's because most people are aware of Apple products, know of Apple products, and they can hopefully see our point or understand our analogies about marketing, because Apple is a great marketing company. So we want to use examples and case studies that most people could hopefully understand. So that's why we use Apple as an example. So and
we're not being endorsed or anything.
yeah, we just want to make that clear. But no, I was gonna say that the statement about the white MacBooks and appealing to like a female demographic and like in the medical field, don't take it as a fact. I think I have to do a little bit of more research, but that's something that I've read about it somewhere, and it's been always in my mind. It's always in my mind that piece of information.
That's interesting.
And also, like, Apple always catered to the creative industry.
True.
Graphic designers. Oh, Mac is Apple is my, brand of choice for design, for creatives. And I don't know, what I'm thinking is that like Apple knew that creatives and designers and artists, run the world. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just thinking that Apple as a company it has the DNA of its founder, and when you think about Steve Jobs as a person, as a entrepreneur, business person, just his philosophy, it's really interesting to me to see the continuation of that spirit, that advocates for the artist, that advocates for the creative change, trend makers of the world, and to be able to infuse that philosophy into a brand that continues to this day and is thriving is pretty powerful, I think, because a lot of companies when their founder goes away, they kind of lose that spirit, I suppose. But then there are some founders who create companies that continue. And another example of that is Walt Disney, right?
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah,
think
Walt
it's really
Disney.
interesting to see that. Yeah.
Right.
Who do you think is, go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead. What question were you going to ask?
No, I was just going to ask you, like, who do you think is up at that level right now? Like Walt Disney, Steve Jobs, in terms of like creative output, but also, yeah.
Like a creative, like a persona attached to the brand.
Sure. Yeah, you could say that.
I mean, we have two easy examples, like Kanye attached to Yeezy, and then we have Kim Kardashian attached to Skims and all her business ventures. So there is a face to the products, to the brands, like all of that is attached to a persona.
Yeah.
And I believe there is like a success to that. People are not only buying the product for the product's sake, but for being associated with the person. Or you buy this brand because it represents a group of values that you believe in. You buy Converse because you want to empathize with the creative, with the rebellious spirit, whatever. That's why you buy Converse. And this is a great example here too, because it goes to show, how people crave for purity in the business decisions, in the product, in everything that you do. They expect honesty. And a lot of people were, or at least like the hardcore Converse Chuck Taylor fans, they were very against Nike buying Converse, Nike updating Nike made more comfortable the Chuck Taylor shoe.
They're supposed to be uncomfortable?
Yeah. And a lot of people were like, this is capitalism, and the whole thing, just people like, this is not the way it was made. Why is it changing? To a certain degree, I sometimes share the same perspective of like, if something is not broken, why fix it? Or like, if something is perfect, why change it? I do have an issue when companies or brands change something small within that blueprint, but they market it as something new. That's where I'm like, okay, well, you're trying to charge me like, premium price for quote unquote a new product that looks like 99% like the last one. So it's like, yeah, it's just, for me, it just doesn't translates. Like, I don't see the value proposition here. How do you feel about this scenario?
Yeah, I was about to say, this might be a hot take, but that's kind of how I feel about the iPhone. It's like barely, well, I can't say that, but that it's barely changed, but the design of it, I mean, and I remember from the beginning how each generation was sort of there was a major differences. And now I'm assuming that the tech has gotten so good that it's really difficult to make leaps in and drastic changes in the design. So it is just like an example. That's the first thing that came to mind. But I can relate to that, like just like being sort of left unfulfilled by certain things, not being so different from the previous generation, yet the marketing or the branding is so good that it just makes you kind of have to go like, all right, snap out of it. You don't need it because it's very similar to what came before and you are perfectly satisfied with it.
Right.
But
That's a very interesting answer, or like a conversation having with yourself where you're like telling yourself, hey, you don't need it.
yeah, you don't.
Um,
I think we talked about that in the previous episode. Again, I'm also thinking that the reason why Apple comes up so much in our conversations is one, we're like, you and I are probably surrounded by Apple products.
Yeah.
We know their history pretty well, and
It's an inspiring history.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, I tell people all the time when they ask, how I got into design, it
was Apple product?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What got you into design?
Dude, I was in a middle school class. Well, let me backtrack a little bit. The first interaction that I remember with an Apple product, I was in elementary school, didn't have a computer at the time, but my mother was able to rent or get a loan computer from my school and for a few days. And it was an early Apple computer, like early. It didn't have a graphical user interface. It was an Apple like SE or something. Well, it was black screen. You had to insert a floppy drive. I don't remember much of it. I just remember trying to play a game on it, and I only had it for a few days. That was my first interaction. It wasn't that like, I mean, it was a computer. I was pretty impressed, but all I remember is the logo, the rainbow colored logo. But the next interaction that I had with an Apple product was when I was in middle school, and I saw in my art class this TV, blue looking TV that I immediately gravitated towards, and it was a 1998 blue iMac. And I just remember going like, I don't know what this is or how this got here, but I want to figure out how to get one. And that's kind of how it all started for me.
Right.
Oh, I think this is funny. I remember asking my art teacher at the time, where is the tower? Where's the computer tower? And he was like, it's the
it's
screen
inside the computer.
It's inside there. And I was like, what? That's crazy. No way.
That's so funny.
But that's kind of how it started. I just started obsessing over Apple stuff after that, and that was kind of like my gateway into the world of like Adobe, Photoshop, and all those other little things that I started to do. How about yourself?
Yeah.
How did you like get started, or what got you? What's like your earliest memory of design?
Well, I think for me, it would have been toys. Toys got me into the thought of like, we get excited about toys. They evoke this emotion. They evoke these feelings. They're colorful. They're tactile. they carry different roles, different spirits, like superhero, the villain. So like it's just such a like multi-dimensional experience that, now that I'm like looking back and analyzing my experiences, like definitely toys, definitely Legos
Yeah.
play a huge part in my way of processing information. And in regards to Apple products, I have to say the iPod Nano, what's
Mm.
really what like I was crazy about. Never had one, but I was crazy to have one, to get one. But yeah, iPod Nano. That was what like just triggered my interest in Apple products. And then I use some MacBooks, desktops in college, and before SCAD. By the way, before SCAD, I used like these Apple computers. It was really cool. I really liked the mouse because it was the bubbly
Yeah.
mouse, like
The transparent one.
yeah, with the little ball in the middle. So that was very good memories with that Apple product. And then of course, after SCAD, it was you know it was just the norm to use Apple. However, I had a PC throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I had a PC. I had a Vaio, Sony Vaio,
Mm-hmm.
which I really liked. And I wish Sony still make computers, because
Oh, really?
I think I will still have a PC if Sony still make computers.
Wow.
Yeah. But I'm sad they pull out of the laptop game. But yeah, I really enjoy having that Vaio, and I had it for like, I don't know, 4 years more.
Wow. Yeah.
For a long time, I had that laptop. My mom still has that laptop because I gave it to her, and she updated some of the hardware,
Oh,
and still going.
that's amazing. That's incredible. Yeah, I remember the Sony Vaio designs in the kind of mid 2000s were very before like MacBook Air and all of these like really thin laptops, they were the ones that were kind of leading the way there, if I recall correctly. Um
Mm-hmm.
I just like speaking of like early inspiration for getting into design, you
Mm-hmm.
it reminded me of something, just being like with on the topic of toys. I just remember being fascinated by motors in RC cars.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, RC cars! I was go crazy for RC cars.
Do you remember that? That
Yeah, because
yeah.
I was gonna say you could control something. You had the
Right.
control of doing something. So it was like on wheels, cool graphics, fluorescent colors. It was just exciting.
Yeah, just that radio remote felt like a superpower, like just magic. I remember, like, how does this work? How does this make how do the wheels know where to turn? I just remember thinking that. Um, and I I took a few of them apart. I just couldn't like take it anymore with the curiosity.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
uh yeah, when I opened it and found the little motor inside, I was just like, how is this wire making this little stick move? And I think that that's one of the things that early kind of memories about following your curiosity, even if there's consequences and you're not able to put that toy back, which was the case for me many times.
Yeah.
But I do think that this is like touching on something that continues on to this day. It's this, and I think it's so important. Design school was so important for me to be able to like continue that within a process, that curiosity and following it along through a process, and accepting that sometimes you fail and that's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of the learning process. Like sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can't put it back together, or sometimes you break it, or sometimes you ruin the material you're working with. And learning to be more accepting of that is really important, I think,
Yeah.
because in your experience,
Mm-hmm.
have you seen any differences between, let's say, the people who are taking more risks than other people who are not taking as many risks? Like, is there a difference in creative output?
Yes, totally. There is, you always have the person that, well, it could be a number of things, one could be fear, like, oh, I don't want to fail, and this often happens in places, work environments where your performance is measured by your accuracy, or like your, you're measured by your success, and your performance is being measured pretty much.
Like school?
Those are the people, a school, corporations, big companies that don't want to like,
Yeah.
hey, we don't want to waste resources, type of thing.
Yeah.
So, um, so that's more common in those kind of scenarios where your performance is being measured. People wants to play it safe, and they just like move a line here and there, and oh, it feels like different enough. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Mm.
And if that's the scope of work, and if that's what makes you happy, by all means you do that. But don't call yourself a designer, don't call yourself an artist, don't call yourself an innovator. You are just replicating, you are just copy pasting, you are just doing like a robot like work, like like you're in the grid.
Wow.
But people that are willing to take risk, are willing to fail, are not afraid of failing, they often they can find things that we didn't know we liked. And I think a great example of this statement would be Easy. Who would have thought we would have loved all those outer-worldly, like out of very these avant-garde shapes? Who would have thought we would have loved that? Who would have thought people would go crazy for that?
That's a
But
great
like
example.
it was, or like jazz. People didn't know they liked jazz until jazz was created and played, and so like in same approach. Who would have thought people would have gone crazy for Yeezy? And it really shifted our perception of footwear, like shapes wise. Like it's just really a stretch.
Yeah.
We went from horse carriage to car to a flying car. And I think this is the flying car. Like this is the next chapter in human mentality. And yes, Adidas enable a lot of the of the execution and the getting those products to people, which was great. But but yeah, like that's to the extent that you want to operate. Like, for example, think about this. This is what I think innovation and no fear of failing looks like. Let's say, for example, Nike. Nike sells you clothes, products, shoes, hoodie, this, that. They sell you that stuff. If Nike really wanted to innovate and take it a step further, they could do this. They could create a community. They could create a living space where all the things, all the products, all the furniture, everything in the space is designed for you to eliminate the need to work out. Because all the things that are in that space are perfectly weighted so that when you lift them up, you're working out already. And
Wow.
since Nike is a, athletic company, wouldn't it make sense that everything that you touch Nike, you're already working out in it? Like you lift a cup that is heavy enough, but you're like exercising your hand joints, I don't know, your arm, when you're drinking, that's your that's your biceps, you're working out your biceps when you're drinking, the motion. So like when you think of that level of operation, and that's how brands could transcend from just being, oh, we just sell shoes, we sell you something, you give us money, and that's it. Like, you go talk about it with your friends, posting in social media. But like when you truly design, as you said in a previous episode, like the changes start at home.
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, okay, if you really want to innovate, let's redesign the living spaces where you are and truly think about what we do, how we do it. And then, like Nike could come out with like a community where we're healthy, where we live longer, where we don't injure ourselves as much as, like, if we have to perform, we're forced to perform high intensity workout jobs. Because, well, everything I do, every motion, every motion that I do in this living space, I'm working out already. So that's, some food for thought.
I think you just gave Nike some
free sauce.
Some free sauce. Wow. Yeah, that's a really interesting take on Nike products. And when you were talking about it, just the idea of brands and their ethos being just pre-infused into their products, where if you interact with the products, they are living up to what they were created to do. It made me think of Patagonia and the way that they approach things in certain respects, where their brand is more a sort of nature, like conservationist. Like they have this mission to protect the environment, and
right.
I've always found it quite admirable that they encourage you to buy their used products.
Right.
And so in that action of sort of not discouraging, but encouraging a less waste, or maybe less energy.
Responsible consumerism. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, hey, buy our latest and greatest thing, is another example of like how brands are able to take that ethos, that philosophy, that their mission, and infuse it in their products. And I think that's quite interesting to think of what is it that we
Yeah.
stand for, and how are our products representing that in a genuine way, and how are our customers benefiting from our point of view through our products is a
Right.
interesting way to kind of think about it. And I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you this because we have in previous episodes talked about personal branding, building relationships. We talked about that today. And as we are nearing kind of the end of this episode, I'd like to kind of turn it back around to our audience who is listening, who is probably working on their portfolio and also, building relationships with potential clients. How can they better understand what they stand for and how to implement that in their body of work, whether it lives online,
Yeah.
whether it's, the kind of projects they take on? What would you recommend for someone like that in that
Yeah.
sort of
I think
process?
I will simply say, and we can close the podcast with this thought. Make sure that your purpose is clear. The purpose of being a designer and creative is to live the planet, live your community better than you found it, and to create products that truly improve people's lives, psychologically, physically, mentally, and create products that are accessible. The good is not only for the people that have means, but also it should be for everyone. And we'll expand on this because this is a really good topic on the next episode. And I thank you everyone for tuning in, and we really appreciate you joining us in this journey, and thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this was the Moodboard podcast, where we have meaningful conversations to help you unlock your creative potential. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Until
Take care.
then.